Thank you, Nandeep and team, for the opportunity to talk on the topic of intellectual property. With that, I would like to begin my presentation. So I'd like to start with the basic definition of what intellectual property is. So creations of mind is actually referred to as intellectual property. So whatever your mind is able to conceive, right, is in intangible form. And when you procure a right for it, it becomes tangible and it is referred to as an intellectual property right. So whatever your mind is able to conceive, it falls in different categories. So it can be an idea, it can be a product, it can be a method, it can be a logo, it can be an expression, it can be simply a word, it can be a pattern or combination of pattern and design and colors. It can be expression in the form of a book or poem or content, like a video or music. So for protecting these different types of expressions, we have different types of intellectual property. So broadly, intellectual property is classified into industrial property and copyright. So industrial property includes patent, trademark, industrial design, and geographical indication. I'll be talking briefly about trade secrets as it is closely related to patents. So we'll begin the presentation with learning what trade secret is about. So any compilation of information that has an economic value and will give you an economical advantage over your competition is referred to as trade secret. So for a compilation of information to qualify as trade secret, it should have an economical value. Second, it should be known to a limited group of people. And third is the information must be kept as a secret. So whoever is the owner should keep the information secret. Only then it remains as a trade secret. So some of the examples that broadly fall into the category of a trade secret include R&D information, algorithms, inventions, devices, methods, business processes, etc. So validity of a trade secret is perpetual. Now, trade secrets are actually very hard to maintain. Maintaining secrecy of a trade secret is quite challenging. So one company that has successfully been able to keep their formula a secret all these years is Coca-Cola. So Coca-Cola syrup has been, Coca-Cola company has been able to keep the syrup as a trade secret. So the way the Coca-Cola is bottled is the syrup comes in sealed containers to the bottling plants where aerated water is with the Coca-Cola syrup in known proportions and then bottled and distributed. So recently you can read, you can Google up and read, there were a lot of thefts related to trade secrets. There was one case related to TCS, and then there was one case related to Intel, and even the Google autonomous driving technology was stolen by an ex-Google engineer. So all of this information is available on the internet, which can be Googled and read about. So the next type of intellectual property is a copyright. So what does copyright protect? Copyright protects an expression of an idea. And when I say an expression of an idea, it can be in the form of art or literature or music or cinema, videos, poems, books, etc. So software code and database design can also be copyrighted. So what is this term called? Jurisdiction. Jurisdiction is nothing but a geographical location. So if you want to protect your copyright content, you want to copyright your content within a jurisdiction, what that means is you can get protection in that jurisdiction. So when I say jurisdiction, it refers to a country. So if you register, get a protection in India, if you register it in India, you will get protection in India, and if you register it in other countries, you will get protection in those countries. So the typical process of registration of copyright in India is you provide us the content, the description of the content, and we will do a search to see in which class or classification your content falls into, and once that is done, we will proceed with the next steps with registration of the content. So copyright by default is created the moment you create the content. So it can be protected by the word C, your name, and the year of creation. So the validity of a copyright is typically the life of the author and 50 to 100 years. So the reason I'm giving you a range 50 to 100 years is because it is different for different countries and different jurisdictions. So the next type of geographical type of intellectual property is geographical indication. So geographical indication indicates the source or origin of products or goods. These are generally applicable to agriculture, natural or manufactured products. So industrial goods and handicrafts will broadly fall into these categories. Some of the examples of GI include Assam tea, Swiss watch, Cuban cigars, Parmesan cheese, etc. So what do these geographical indication do? So typically indicates attributes of the product or attributes of source or origin. So let's take the example of Swiss watch. So when a watch is manufactured within the geographical region of Switzerland, it will have certain quality attached to it. It will have certain regional attributes. So when I say regional attributes, it can be quality, it can be the components that I use to manufacture the watch, it can be the revenue that is being generated by selling those watch. So there are various factors. So the validity of a geographical indication is typically 10 years and it is renewable for another 10 years. So the next type of IP is an industrial design, or what is referred to as a design patent. So design patent is one that protects the ornamental aspects or aesthetic aspects. So it does not take into account functional aspects of a product. So when I say ornamental, it can refer to a shape or a pattern or a color, an arrangement of lines or combinations of these. So to give you examples of design patterns, you can take the example of a cell phone. So for example, every cell phone company files for design patterns of their models before they are actually released in the market so that nobody copies. Another example that I can give is shape and pattern of bottles of soda, or you can take Coca-Cola or 7-Up or Thumbs Up. The way the bottle is shaped, and the pattern, the arrangement of dots or lines can be protected by a design patent. So typically the validity is for 10 years and it is renewable for another 5 years. So the next type of IP is a trademark. So any word, expression, or logo that uniquely identifies your business or product or a service is referred to as a trademark. So trademark is again restricted to a jurisdiction, which means that if you file for a protection for a trademark in India, you will get protection in India. And likewise, if you file the trademark application in other regions, you get protection in those regions. So the typical process of filing a trademark is you will need to provide us the description of your product or business or service, and we will do a search in a database that is maintained by the World Intellectual Property, or it is referred to as WIPO. So WIPO defines 45 classes or classifications of goods and services. So based on the description that you provide, we'll do a search to identify the classes in which your product or business or service falls into, and then we make recommendation for you to file a trademark in those classes. So typically, once you file the trademark application, you can use the symbol TM. And once the examination process is completed and the trademark is registered, you can use the symbol R. So typically the validity of a trademark is 10 years and it is renewable perpetually. So the next type of intellectual property is a patent. So what is a patent? A patent is nothing but an exclusive right to a technical solution for a problem. So what is that exclusive right that you get when the patent gets granted? So the exclusive right that one gets when the patent gets granted is you can exclude others from making, using, selling, offering to sell, or importing the patented invention. So term of a patent is for 20 years from the date of filing the patent application. So patent rights are again jurisdictional, which means that if you register for a patent in India, you will get protection only in India. And likewise, if you register the patent in other jurisdictions, in other regions or other countries, you get protection in other countries. So there is a wrong notion which is predominant in the community as to there is a global patent. There is nothing called as a global patent. You have to file the patent application in the respective country to get protection in that. There is a process called PCT or Patent Cooperation Treaty that facilitates you to file a single application, which is referred to as international application, which can be filed in one office, and you can choose the countries in which you need protection. So PCT allows you to file a single application and choose the countries in which you want to seek protection. There is another convention called the Paris Convention, which can be used to file a patent application in other countries within 12 months of your first filing. So what does that mean? To give you an example, let's say we file a patent application through in India on Monday, which is 7th September 2020. So you will have a window of 12 months before which you can file the same patent application in any other country. You will get the same priority date, but you will have a window of 12 months to do that. If you lose the 12-month window, then whenever you file, it will be a fresh application with a fresh date. You will not get the priority to the previously filed patent application. Now, previously we learned about the design patent. So design patent mainly protects the aesthetic or ornamental aspects. It does not protect the functional features. So when you want to protect the functional features of a product or process, then you need to file what is known as a utility patent. So there are two types of utility patents that one can file. So the first type of utility patent is a provisional patent application that can be filed during an ideation stage. So let's say you have the crux of the idea ready and you are working on some additional features, or probably even the features are ready and you're experimenting with those features. Then we typically recommend you to file a provisional patent application. So what is the advantage of filing a provisional patent application? So provisional patent application will give you a window of 12 months before which you can, so on or before the expiry of the 12-month window, you will need to file a complete application. So provisional patent application is never published. It is never examined, but it will only give you a priority date. So let me give you an example as to how this works. So let's say we file a provisional patent application on Monday, which is 7th September 2020. You will have a window of 12 months, which is 7 September 2021, before which you will need to file a complete or a non-provisional patent application. Now, when you file within this 12-month window, you can take priority to the provisional patent application. So anytime you file the complete application in the 12-month window, you can take priority to the provisional patent application. So what does that mean? So let's say if we file the complete application after 6 months, say sometime in March or April, it would be as good as filing the patent application on 7 September 2020. So that is the advantage that you will get. So complete or non-provisional patent is the one which goes through the examination process and it matures into a granted patent. So coming to what is patentable, not patentable. So broadly, your idea should fall into one of these categories, which is a product or a process or an article of manufacture or composition of matter or improvements of these. Once it falls into one of these categories, every patent office across the world have established a basic criteria for testing patentability. So what is that criteria? So first is the novelty, or what is new about the idea. Second is the inventive step. So it is referred to as inventive step in India. It's called a technical effect in Europe, and it's called non-obviousness in the US. And the third aspect is it should have a utility. So it should have an application, industrial application at the end of it. So once your idea meets these criteria, then it can mature into a granted patent. So what is not patentable? So the patent offices across the world have again defined a bunch of things which are not patentable. So these include laws of nature, abstract ideas, traditional knowledge. And when I say traditional knowledge, yoga, Unani, Ayurvedic related concepts are again not patentable. So anything related to atomic energy or defense is again not patentable. Anything publicly known worldwide, and software and algorithms per se are not patentable. So many of them think that software and algorithms are not patentable, but the way the software or the algorithm gets embodied, and when I say embodied, there are two aspects here. When you're looking at a software application, the implementation is one aspect. Second are the functional aspects. So you can patent the functional aspects of the software or the functional aspects of the algorithm, but you cannot patent the software application itself or the algorithms themselves. So functional aspects, as long as they are able to meet the criteria of novelty, inventive step, and utility. So there is a catch here. When I say novelty, many a times it may not be a new idea. So the onus lies or goes to the inventive step or the technical effect. Evaluation can be done on the technical effect. If it is an existing, technical solution, we can do an evaluation based on the improvement. So if it is distinct, if the improvement is distinct and quantifiable, then it may be granted as a patent. Slide is going to be, we're going to talk about the myths. So a lot of times people think that, ideas must be groundbreaking for you to file a patent application. This is not true. So for you to file a patent application, the idea must be tangibly manifested. So when I say tangibly manifested, what does it mean? So let's say you have an idea and you have an input to your idea, and your idea does some kind of processing or transformation or some kind of, technical, it has a technical effect on the input and it will produce an output. And the output is again tangible and has a utility, then it is patentable. So we do not, the second myth is working prototype or proof of concept is needed. Again, this is not true. Like I said, as long as your idea can be tangibly manifested, it is good enough for us to file a patent application. So the third myth is every innovation is patentable. So this is not true, and it truly depends from case to case basis. Let me give you a very simple example of an innovation. So if we go back in time, back in 2007, when iPhone was launched, it was the first innovative product, or one of the first innovative products launched in the world. So how does it qualify or account as an innovation? So when iPhone was launched, so just prior to when iPhone was launched, there was a phone in the market, there was a web browser in the market, and there was an iPod, which was a music player in the market. So what Steve Jobs did, he combined these three into a single device and sold it, as an iPhone. So that became an innovative concept. So typically innovations are combinations of solutions. So if one or more combination, meets the criteria of either novelty or technical effect, or technical advancement or an improvement of technical effect, then we can possibly look at getting a patent for that innovation. The fourth type of myth is, this is not in India, but it exists elsewhere in the world. So in such a case, it's not patentable because it does not meet the criteria of novelty. Novelty is nothing but it has to be new in the entire world. The last one is, I will wait until. This is a very classic thing that I keep getting all the time. So a lot of times people have ideas, they don't want to invest the money and time in developing it, or filing an IP for it, and they wait perpetually, or let's say they wait for a fixed period of time. So IP doesn't work that way. So all patent offices across the world, whoever files first for a patent application or a trademark application or a copyright or a geographical indication will get the protection first. So even if you have an idea, you have a product, and let's say you have a company and you have an amazing idea, you have built business which has been commercially successful, but you have not filed a patent for it timely. If somebody, let's say your competitor, realizes that and they file for a patent, they can put you out of business. So this is what IP can potentially do. There have been a lot of examples in the past in India, across the world, where businesses have been shut down because of IP infringement. So what happens is if you don't do it, somebody else will do it and will put you out of business. So this conversation actually sets up the premise for the discussion as to when to protect your IP, and the time is now. So if you don't do it now, then somebody else will do it and get the protection. So the delay, the more you delay, the probability of you losing the IP will only increase. So the sooner you act, the better it is for you. So typically it is recommended to protect your IP before making pitches and presentations to investors or prospective customers. So I've had this case in which I'm involved currently. So I have a client in Bangalore. So we filed a we filed a patent application for them back in 2018, and early this year in Jan-Feb, they went to a customer. They signed an NDA with the customer, and they made a pitch of the product to the customer, and the customer rejected, saying that we don't need this because the product doesn't have good features, or it is not useful to us. Within 2 months, the same customer post demo, they came up with a product with identical features and functionality and tried to release it in the market at my client. So currently, my client has issued a legal notice, and we are in the process of litigation. So we have issued a notice to the prospective customer to whom the demo was given, and the litigation is in process. So why to protect IP? It will give you an edge over your competition or your competitors. It will help you secure your markets. You will have an early mover advantage and recognition. It opens up, opportunities for collaborations, business and research. So a lot of, again, there are a lot of examples, universities, companies who have a sizable patent portfolio and are doing active research, have received, funding from external agencies, external companies. So, for example, in the telecom domain, Nokia, Ericsson, they constantly do that. Look for smaller companies who are doing active research in telecom technologies and make investments and try to see sizable patent portfolio built as well in the process. So next is it demonstrates competencies and shows your problem solving ability. So moving to the next slide, which again talks why we should protect IP. So you can have a strategy for your business and revenue goals. So strategy can be defensive, where you're actually trying to protect what you have created. So whatever is your idea or product or process, you're trying to seek protection. So you can go the defensive mode. Offensive is the example that I gave you. So my client has already filed for IP and somebody copies, and you can go and sue them and try to get an injunction. Injunction is nothing but stopping them from making or using or selling that product, because those are the rights that the IP will give you. It will attract investments and lifeline in valley of death in innovation. So I think COVID is a perfect example for the last sentence. So we can see that businesses are wrapping up overnight, and there are a lot of tech companies or startups who are facing a lot of issues with respect to funding, even sustenance for that matter of fact. So historically, if we go back in time, we've had a recession in 2001, 2007, 8, and now we are pretty much moving into another recession. So back in 2007-8, Nortel Networks went out of business, and they were able to survive or bail out because they had a sizable patent portfolio, and they were able to license their IP. So to give you an example of commercial, so Microsoft, although they are not in Android space, but they have created a lot of IP around Android, and they license this IP. And I think very recently, last year, they have been doing that for the last 8 or 10 years. And very recently, they were able to make $2 billion out of licensing. So another example that I can give you of a commercially successful company is Qualcomm. So Qualcomm invests heavily into R&D, and 70 to 80% of its revenue every year is generated only through patent licensing. So their average licensing revenue per quarter is $1.2 billion. This is not for the year, but per quarter. Per quarter, they are able to generate close to $1.2 billion only through licensing. Another example that I can give you is of Google acquisition of Motorola. This is again back in 2012. Google acquired Motorola and all the IP. So they were actually interested in IP, but not in Motorola's business, handset or whatever hardware devices they built. They acquired IP. So at the time of acquisition, 14,000 granted patents and 7,500 pending applications, all of which were transferred to Google. And subsequently, Google sold the handset division of Motorola to Lenovo for about $3 billion. So the industry was like, Google did a mistake by selling off the handset division, and they were at a loss. But this is not true. Their main intention was to get all the IP. So the reason they did that was because just at beginning of 2010-12, Android was standardizing. It was taking the shape of a standard operating systems, and there were a lot of patent wars going between Google, BlackBerry, Samsung, Apple. So they were trying to sue Google. So Google did a smart move by acquiring Motorola and its patents. It safeguarded itself. So some do's, best practices is to seek protection as soon as possible. Like I said, you cannot say, I'll wait till I become rich or till I get some kind of funding, So whenever you are disclosing something, discussing some idea, let it be with your colleague or your friend or your potential business partner, or you're making pitches for funding with your investors or customers, it's always good to sign non-disclosure. So this is very important. Seeking value, what and when you sow and then shall you reap. This is very true. So have a strategy, have a budget for IP. My sincere advice is don't jump and go with someone who provides you the lowest cost. So just to give you an example, so back in 2013, 14 and 15, cumulatively, there were 12,000 patent applications that were filed in India. Last year, many of them were examined and granted, and only 2,000 patent applications were granted from those 12,000. The reason being the patent applications did not meet the standards prescribed by the patent office. It did not meet the patentability requirements. So this is one of the pitfall. So sincerely advise you to be careful about this. So the last one is legal compliance. I think it's more applicable to your line of work. Open source softwares comes with libraries or snippets or packages that are attached with the open source license. So sometimes these licenses are permissive and sometimes they are restrictive. So you have to be legally compliant to ensure that you don't lose your IP. So when you try to use a restrictive package, let's say you have a open source software library which is having a restrictive license attached to it, for example, GPL or LGPL, and you try to integrate that into your code without your knowledge, what it does is it will necessitate you to open up the code that you have developed. So you have to be very careful when you are using these open source libraries or packages. So some of the don'ts include don't Google or make up or design around something. Naturally, human tendency is that they will see it somewhere, come Google or read up information about it and try to see if they can design around it. Don't try to do that. Don't try to do it yourself. Don't try to read up a patent application and write up your own just to save costs, because jugaad in this field will not work, because the patent application would be examined against a set of rules and act defined by the respective patent offices. And if they do not meet those requirements, you will lose your IP anyways. So you will not get it. So do not publish, do not talk about your ideas in journals or blogs or publicly disclose. So try to get an IP evaluation done before you actually go and do this. So it's a common practice, especially in industry as well as in academic institutions, where the research is published first in a journal, and then when someone asks them, have you filed an IP for it, have you filed a patent for it, that is when they realize, oh, this was maybe valuable and we have not filed an IP for it. So don't do that. Generally, good practice is to get an evaluation done before you engage in such activities. And last is don't stop thinking, solving problems, innovating or inventing. So with that, I would like to conclude my presentation, and I open up the floor for questions. Thank you.